Greetings and welcome to Wisconsin in Focus, powered by the Center Square. I'm Dan McCaleb, Vice President of News and Content at the Franklin News Foundation, which publishes the Center Square Newswire service. Joining me again today, as he does each and every week, is Benjamin Yount, the Center Square's Wisconsin correspondent. How are you, Ben?
I have to take down my Halloween decorations so that I can put up my Thanksgiving decorations, so that I can immediately take those down and put up my Christmas decorations. It does not pay to wait for decorating season.
I was just going to say, this is a fun time of the year when you've got three pretty big holidays back to back to back, Ben. Have you gotten rid of your pumpkins yet?
We didn't do any pumpkins this year. We went for sort of a spooky, fun theme, lots of little witches and cats and bats in the trees. And it's either been raining or 35-mile-an-hour winds, so I have not been out there to take them down yet. No, I'm not big on pumpkins because they just end up rotting right there in your yard. Did you do jack-o'-lanterns and the such?
My wife did 2 jack-o'-lanterns. They were carried out to the trash on Monday and hauled away. Are you one last question before we get into the news, Ben? Are you a pumpkin seed connoisseur?
I will eat them, but it's not something that I will go out and seek. I have great memories of my mom after she yelled at us when we were children for messing up the jack-o'-lanterns. She would toast the pumpkin seeds, and those were quite good. But no, it's not. I'm not a seed guy. Take a lesson from your Uncle Ben, kids. Take much better care of your teeth, because when you become an adult, bad teeth is a curse.
Oh, no doubt about it. Well, let's get into it, Ben. We are recording this on Thursday, November 9th. Democrats at the state capitol want to provide free school lunches to all students in Wisconsin's K-12 school districts, regardless of their family's income. Republican lawmakers already have rejected the idea once, but Democrats are now bringing it back. Tell us more, Ben.
This is half of an expansion, a maximization, I think is the better word, of a federal program that right now in Wisconsin, kids who qualify, and just for the ease of term, low-income kids already get free school lunch. Kids who are medium income, maybe a little bit above low income, they get reduced price lunch. So it's not as if anybody is going hungry in Wisconsin schools, but, the federal government through the Department of Education and the Department of Agriculture, they give out money to school districts, to states to make sure that kids eat. And Democrats at the Wisconsin Capitol want to maximize the return. This is no different than Democratic lawmakers in other states who want to maximize the return on Medicaid or maximize the return on federal grants, maximize the return on conservation money. This is just a sort of mindset issue. Again, there's no right or wrong. It is a general sense of, if there is a federal program, you will always have Democratic lawmakers who want to get as much of that as they possibly can. Some of this is truly from advocates who want to make sure that all kids get healthy school meals. And this then gets to a question of what's the cost versus what's the benefit, and who are you really helping here? And those questions don't really have an answer yet. Chris Larson, we use the quote in the piece from him, and he's a progressive senator from Milwaukee, said that poverty is a policy choice, and said one thing that we learned during the pandemic is that so is having hungry kids. During the coronavirus, as much as anything, just for ease of administration, the USDA and the Department of Education said everybody gets free lunch. We're not going to try and parse through on schools, some of which are open, some of which are at home, some of which are still providing meals, even though kids are remote learning. We're just going to say everybody gets free lunch. Don't even try and collect a lunch payment from these kids. Don't worry about it. Just go out the door. Here you go. And when the coronavirus emergency order officially ended earlier this year, all of that kind of expanse, all of that extra padding went away. Now, districts in Wisconsin can opt into providing free lunch for everybody, but there is a cost to that. This plan specifically would change that to an opt-out. The default would be everybody gets free lunch, and if you don't want to, then you can make the decision. Just sort of an anecdote, the superintendent in Manitowoc schools, which is maybe an hour or so north of Milwaukee. Manitowoc is famous for making a murderer. That's where the Avery brothers were from. Superintendent there said, hey, look, this is costing us money. This really isn't efficient. We're going to end free lunch for all. And a number of parents spoke up. They were very upset. And the superintendent there reversed the decision, saying, you know what? I didn't mean to cause this much of a pain in the butt. We'll go back to doing free lunch for all. So while there is a policy debate here, don't forget that there are an awful lot of parents who, if they can save $20, $25, $30, $50 a week, would probably not mind saving $20, $25, $30, $50 a week by not having to pay for their kids to eat lunch at school.
Yeah, those federal COVID-19 programs, Ben, that increase spending, including free lunch for all students or whatever, they're interesting because no one wants to see kids go hungry. Absolutely not. But those same kids now, today, who are getting those free lunches, those spending programs added trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars to the national debt. It's now approaching 34 trillion. That's trillion, TR, not billion, trillion. They're going to be paying for it 30, 40, 50 years from now. So anyway.
This is the cost conversation here in Wisconsin. This would cost $120 million a year. And just back of the napkin math, Wisconsin's budget's $44 billion a year. So $120 million out of a budget of $44 billion, that's not a large amount of money. I mean, look, $120 million is enough for everybody, to live on for the rest of their lives. But when you talk about state government, it's not a ton of money. But that's $120 million this year, next year, year after that, year after that, year after that, into perpetuity. And that money is supposed to come, according to these Democrats and these advocates, from Wisconsin's $7 billion surplus. Well, that surplus they also want to use to pay for health care and to pay for child care. And they'd love to expand Medicaid with that. And they'd love to see some of that money spent on teachers. And they'd love to see the money spent at the University of Wisconsin. And if you take $120 million here, $120 million there, $500 million here, all of a sudden that state surplus just disappears. And then you have to start to make the decision, because money isn't infinite. State of Wisconsin cannot print money like the federal government can. And so you get to this policy debate at the end of the day of who do you want to help? Because again, family of four makes up to $39,000 a year. Their kids get free school lunch right now, no questions asked. You can be up to a family of four at $55,000 a year to get reduced price lunches. This plan would give every family in the state of Wisconsin a free school lunch. That includes people who live in some of the affluent suburbs, 6-figure-a-year families. The question becomes, why should they get a free lunch, particularly if you're going to have to find the money to pay for it by taking that away from other programs that help people? Again, there is a social service safety net, but there's a limit to that. And this is one of the reasons why Republicans rejected this out of the governor's budget back in the spring, and why this proposal is going absolutely nowhere. But it is something that is very popular. Again, you will never lose an election by promising voters free things from government. I don't know that has ever happened in the history of America.
Well, Ben, I was going to close you with what are the prospects this time, and you've answered that question for me already. So we will close this episode of Wisconsin in Focus up. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Ben Yount, I'm Dan McCaleb. Please subscribe. Thank you for listening.